just a few hours away from the bustling city of New York. There are people living their lives as if they've gone back hundreds of years. They don't use electricity, cell phones, or cars. And they even believe that marriage should last a lifetime with no divorce ever. I'm talking about the Amish. The Amish are communities that mostly live in rural areas of states like Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Indiana, and their lives are very simple and traditional. They spend most of their days farming and living without modern technology. Now the question is, how can a group still manage to live so separately and survive in a world where everything is tied to technology? And more importantly, why do they say no to things like electricity and the internet, even when they're right at their fingertips? So, in this particular episode, we're going to dive right into this truly strange and incredibly secretive world together and see what's really going on behind the scenes of this unique and traditional way of life. The Amish are a deeply religious community in America who live almost exactly the same way people did over 300 years ago, maintaining their historical customs and practices. In other words, if you spend some time living with the Amish, you'll feel like you've traveled back in time to the past. They call their rules the Ordnung. This set of rules determines what's allowed and what's forbidden. These unwritten rules cover everything from daily life, behavior, and clothing to religious rituals and even which technologies are permitted, like riding bicycles. Amish clothing is very old-fashioned, and they wear simple bonnets or hats. The men also have long beards. In Middlefield, a rural village in Ohio that's home to one of the world's largest Amish communities, the Amish mostly use horses and buggies. No cars and no tractors. With around 8,000 horses in Middlefield and the surrounding area, blacksmithing seems like a fitting job for the Amish. They can constantly get orders to make horseshoes or build new wheels for buggies. A full set of 4 horseshoes brings in about $400, and a complete set of 4 buggy wheels earns $1,600. The Amish also use electricity in a very limited way in their businesses, and their machinery runs on generators and batteries. They try to be as self-sufficient as possible. For example, they have a factory that makes stoves and furniture. Since they don't have computers or phones, they record their orders manually and on paper through an intermediary. The reason the Amish try to avoid technology, and not only do they feel a sense of discipline from it, but they actually enjoy it, is that they believe too much technology only brings trouble. In fact, their perspective is the opposite of the modern view, which says technology brings comfort and convenience. All Amish communities, wherever they are, love to sing religious hymns. Their main occupation is farming because they grow most of their own food. This way, they don't need to get things from outside and can save money to some extent. Of course, one of the important values of the Amish is that whatever their community needs, they produce it themselves by hand. But only 7% of this community can fully rely on their own products. Among themselves, they speak Pennsylvania German, which is actually more like a Southern German dialect. According to Amish tradition, they pray before meals. Meat and mashed potatoes are also usually on their table. Their children learn respect and manners from an early age within the family and help their parents with household chores. Whenever they have free time, they play. Of course, their toys are usually simple as well. For example, they play with old handmade dolls that have no faces or decorations. They usually have their own private schools with their own special teachers. Reports say that there are about 300 to 350 Amish private schools just in the state of Ohio. These schools are usually small and local. Their education is also designed based on Amish beliefs and lifestyle. The Bible also makes up a large part of their curriculum. Alongside that, they also learn spelling, math, different languages, geography, and similar subjects. Some Amish believe that education up to 8th grade is enough for an Amish person to succeed at work, since many of their businesses operate through learning on the job. And interestingly, many of these jobs are successful and always in demand. A simple worker in Amish communities earns about $15 to $20 an hour, and as they gain more experience, like becoming a foreman, supervisor, or manager, their salary increases. But what's surprising is that Amish teenagers are only allowed to keep a small portion of their income for themselves until the age of 20. Until then, they give their earnings to their parents. There's also a dedicated library and museum in Middlefield. This museum was established in 2014 with the goal of collecting and preserving the history of the Amish, whether those living in the villages around Ohio or those settled in other areas. The museum houses more than 300 books, old books, Bibles, prayer books, clothing, documents, and letters, some of which even date back to the 16th century, are all preserved here. For example, there's a Bible printed in 1534 in Zurich, Switzerland, which is a very old edition in German. Even though in different Amish communities the rules might be interpreted differently and each Amish community has to decide for itself how much to adapt to the modern world, some values always remain the same, like their connection to nature and horses and traditional handcraft jobs, or that church and family are always more important than business. For example, if someone unexpectedly rings the doorbell during a family dinner, they usually choose not to answer the door because their precious family gathering and cherished mealtime are significantly more valuable to them. In contrast, Amish youth tend to be a bit more relaxed and open-minded compared to their more traditional grandparents. They believe that if they had to live exactly like people did in the 18th century, they wouldn't be able to survive at all. They couldn't compete in business either. So, each generation decides how much technology to use in order to balance family values and work. In Amish society, the division of roles between men and women is accepted without question. Like interpretation of Bible. First God, then men, then women, then children. Usually, the man is responsible for earning money, and the woman takes care of the house and raising the children. An interesting point about the Amish is that locals say when COVID hit and the whole world was thrown into chaos, they were able to maintain their inner peace thanks to their unique lifestyle. They believe that constantly being connected to social networks and the outside world only increases stress. On the other hand, the Amish say that by limiting their use of technology, they can use their minds more and avoid becoming lazy. Since they are peace-loving, they are not willing to go to war for their country or their president. Although the Amish usually don't vote, they still respect political leaders because they believe God has appointed them. But another major difference in Amish society is their healthcare system. They don't have anything like health insurance because they don't want to depend on government assistance or, as they put it, be on charity. Instead, they rely on a combination of community support, personal savings, and sometimes charity or public auctions to cover medical expenses. At these auctions, people donate items to raise money for medical expenses. And these items are sold at charity auctions to help cover part of the sick person's treatment costs. On the other hand, when faced with high medical expenses, churches play an important role in providing support, especially when dealing with large healthcare costs. In fact, they have a belief called Gelassenheit, which in German means tranquility, putting aside personal and selfish desires and doing the right thing for the community. In a way, they wish good and well-being for everyone, and this is how they achieve inner peace. If families have medical issues, they can use birth control. But there is one big red line. Here, abortion is completely forbidden. Now, with all these things we've said, don't think all Amish people are pure and innocent like angels. There have been cases of incest among them, and even instances where children were sexually abused by their fathers. So even closed communities aren't immune to mistakes and corruption. In the meantime, if someone is socially shunned or officially leaves the community, they can still talk to their family members, but they're never allowed to eat at the same table with them. Let's now move on to exploring one of the most truly strange and quite controversial Amish traditions. This tradition is known as Rumspringa, or as they themselves affectionately call it, the Year of Freedom. It is important to note that Amish baptism typically happens in adulthood. So, before teenagers commit to the church, they have a chance to experience a free life. In other words, when an Amish teenager graduates from school, they get a year of Rumspringa. The family allows them to go out and experience the modern world. During this period, they can buy a cell phone, wear modern clothes, even go to parties or drive, drink alcohol, or date someone of the opposite sex. Now imagine a kid who had never seen electricity or the internet suddenly ending up in the middle of the city, with all its attractions and dangers. Some of these kids, once they get a taste of freedom, never go back. But according to statistics, Most of them decide to return and stay in the Amish community after a few months or years. Why you think this? Despite hardships in Amish community, there's strong sense of belonging support. So basically, after a teenager gets baptized and becomes a member of the church, their period of freedom ends and they have to stay committed. But of course, this period isn't without its controversies. Some people during this time get involved with alcohol, drugs, or even run into legal trouble. That's why critics say Rumspringa is more like a cultural shock than a real opportunity to choose. When I was studying about the Amish, I found myself caught between two feelings. On one hand, the Amish way of life, with its simplicity and sense of community, shows something lost in the modern world. Peace, belonging, and freedom from pointless stress. But on the other hand, the community being so closed off and ignoring scientific progress can sometimes be harmful. So maybe combining these two worlds, the modern and the traditional, is the best choice. I'd love to know what you think. If you had to live like the Amish for a year, would you be willing to keep living that way? I'm looking forward to your thoughts in the comments. The Amish remind us that happiness doesn't necessarily depend on having the latest phone or car. Sometimes, it is truly important to take a deliberate step back and gain a clearer perspective to discern what you genuinely need in your life and what is merely superficial glitz or excessive consumerism. Perhaps the profound answer to some of our modern problems isn't found within a fast-paced, technologically advanced, and often overwhelming high-tech life, but rather in the wisdom of thoughtfully simplifying things.